Hi, this is Stefan Edberg. You're at Weird Tennis. We're here to talk about Roland Garros.
There you
Yes.
go. First
Oh,
shot.
yes. We
First
finally
shot.
made it.
What do you mean finally? First shot.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
tell anybody, Stefan. No, nobody knows the backstory of this.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll be honest with everybody. We ran into a few technical glitches earlier in the day. We wanted to make sure that we'd be able to connect, and it was touch and go. It was touch and go.
Absolutely.
Listen, the only thing that counts is that you're here with us. Thank you very much for joining us for this exchange. It's really an honor for us in Weird Tennis to be able to have you here with us and to talk about the French Open, because Roland Garros, because we should be, I don't know about you, but I should be there, and a lot of other people should be there right now. Unfortunately, it got postponed. It's okay. It'll happen later. It'll happen in September, in the fall. We'll keep our fingers crossed for that one, but things are looking up right now. Were you supposed to be there?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was supposed to be there the second week, and I've been there for a few years, and it's a fantastic event, one of the 4 Grand Slams, and a good time of the year as well.
What were you going to be doing there? Were you going to be playing, commentating?
No commentating, no playing tennis. Actually, I was supposed to do a few events, one with BNP actually, and also with Rolex, which I'm an ambassador for as well. So
okay, no legends for you.
No legends. I've been asked many times by Mansour Barami, but so far not.
You're scared of the level? Come on.
The level is pretty good. I think I can cope with it, but I don't play a lot nowadays, but I enjoy my tennis.
Okay. Where are you in the world? You're in Sweden?
We are in Sweden. We've been here for 2 months, like everybody else. We sort of stayed around the area, not seeing many people, and it's a very different world. But here in Sweden, it hasn't been a total lockdown. So it's actually had some freedom, but obviously it's very different to what we are used to. But we're doing fine, and everybody's healthy. That's the main thing.
Sure. I mean, I think in Sweden there was a different approach, in fact, to this whole lockdown. Like, they decided to not have a lockdown.
Very much so. I think very different from the rest of the world here, and they've kept sort of things semi-open, but I think people are pretty educated here. They try to keep the distance. I think we have an advantage because a lot of people here in Sweden, they live on their own, so there's no sort of big family houses, which sometimes can be a problem with a lot of people around here. So far I think it's worked quite well, but obviously there's a lot of people have died, and which is very unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a rough period, but anyways, things are looking up.
Yes, it is, certainly.
Things are looking up. That's what counts, right?
Yes.
There we go. I have to do a little technical thing here. Okay, great. Well, listen, the important thing is you and I have managed to create a channel of communications, and there are a lot of people here who are following us. I don't know if you can see the comments on your end.
Yes, I can see it coming in here.
There you go. So there are a lot of people. Listen, first question I want to ask you is, I have a lot of stuff to ask you. I want to ask you first, sure, how do you keep busy? Not these days, because these days are a bit strange and odd and weird or whatever, but in normal times, what's your daily routine? What do you do?
Well, I'm very lucky in many ways. You know, I've had time. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time with my family over the last years, and obviously now things are a little bit different, but I don't have any problems keeping my days busy. I'm still a little bit involved in property and in finance. Do a little bit of tennis, but try to have more free time now, where you actually can do things that you want to do. And so yeah, I think the main thing is just to keep healthy and do things that you want to do. And I have the luxury of being able to do things that I want to do. And obviously we traveled quite a bit over the last few years, and we try just to go to nice places, and being at home is great now as well, even if maybe we wish to travel a little bit.
Sure. It seems like as opposed to other players or past players, you kind of put tennis aside a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Is that,
yes, I have. Yeah, I have. I've always stayed involved with tennis, but more in the background. And I've run a foundation in my name for 20 years, over 20 years. That's still going, that I'm still involved. I had a little of a tennis academy university for a little while. I've been a lot on court with young players over the last 15, 20 years. So I've played a lot, and, I've stayed in the background pretty much, and I've enjoyed it that way. But then obviously I was on tour for 2 years with Roger Federer. That was something very different.
Yeah, I mean, you only come on tour just to coach one of the best players of all time. That's it. You're very picky.
Well, yes, I would say so. Yeah, that was a fantastic request, and I'm very glad that I could spend the 2 years with Roger. And as we all know, Roger is a fantastic tennis player, great ambassador for tennis, great personality, and to be able to spend 2 years on the tour after being away for nearly 20 years from the tour, and to see how the tour has progressed. I'm telling you that the players are really great as of today. They play great tennis. All the facilities, stadium, everything is so much better at the times when I was playing. So they made a lot of progress in tennis, and tennis has become a very popular sport as of now. But I think it's due to the great ambassadors of tennis we have, with all the top players.
Sure, sure. I was going to get to that later, but let's tackle that right away. I want to know, what is it like to be in the very, very tight entourage of Roger Federer and to be his coach? Is it there's pressure or not at all, or?
Well, it's, first of all, I mean, it's being a player and a coach is two totally different things. Thank goodness I was part of a team. Severin Lütte, that's been there for a long time, even there, and doing it together with him and having the team around, that made it possible, because to do it on your own after being away from tennis, that would have been very, very hard, because it is a challenge to be as a coach. But it was just being part of the team and giving, advices and tips and the view of, what I thought needed to be doing. I think he probably had an idea why he sort of got me on his team here. He wanted to change his game a little bit, which I think he needed to. But overall, it was a great experience. But I would say it's a lot harder sitting in the stands than playing on the court. So you feel more nervous when you sit watching somebody. So I do know how my wife must have felt during all my matches that I played. It's hard.
Is it even harder though when you're in the box of one, if not the best player of all times, and that his standards are so high that do you feel that, or is that part when you were training? Do you feel that there's something special, or he's just like another player and people just
well, Roger is very special. I think everybody has to agree that as a person, as a personality, and the way he acts, and he's very easygoing. It's easy to be around him, so that's never a problem. And so it's in that respect, it's an easy job. But at the same time, it's just nice to be around, and actually to just to see the way he thinks, and even I gave him tips, but I learned a lot from him as well, and the team and Severin. So there's so much more into tennis than I knew before. With all this experience that I have now, being on tour with Roger and his team for 2 years, if I had that knowledge when I was playing, probably would have been very, very helpful, because he's good in many ways.
And so what happened? I mean, you were asked to continue, right? You decided to stop?
Well, I think we came to a conclusion that, it's tough being on the tour, traveling around, over 100 days a year. And I think I probably did my part. And but he took Ivan Jubicic into his team, which I think was a great move. He's very knowledgeable, and so I think I did what I could, and I gave the energy that I had. But to travel for 4, 5, 6 years, it would have been hard, but it was fantastic for the 2 years that I did, and it was probably just about what felt right for him and for me.
It must have felt good also to see the direct impact that you had on his game.
I think I came in at a good time. We sort of look back at 2013. You had a tough year. He had back problems, didn't play very well, needed to make some changes. And that's probably where I came in the picture. Needed to get some influence of changing the game and maybe changing the game he plays, which I thought he needed to. I think he knew that he needed to as well. I think also a huge decision, which was a great decision, was actually to switch rackets, which he did going into the season with a bigger head racket and more like a new technology. I think that together with a new racket, me being on board and a new year, having a bad year, that's where he sort of started to picking up and started to play some great tennis. And, you know, he went to a few finals during these 2 years and had to watch him lose against Djokovic in a couple of finals, which was very hard. I think he probably deserved to win at least one of them, but Djokovic is a great player, great opponent. But, you know, luckily after he had his injury, I think in 2016, he came back and he's won another 2 Grand Slams since. And, you know, he could have won, like we all saw last year. It was probably one of the best Wimbledon finals we've ever seen, you know, losing to Djokovic in that long final. And that where he had 2 match points, that was one of the hardest moments for me to watch. It was really hard.
So I guess you're rooting for him.
Yes, I always will be.
Even though Djokovic's son is called Stefan. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I haven't heard many other people do it, but yeah, why not?
Okay, let's talk about Roland Garros. I want to know what type of rapport you had with this tournament. That was traditionally a tournament that really was very Swedish compatible.
Oh yes.
Due to the surface. However, you weren't exactly the typical Swede, so it was different for you.
Sure. You know, playing on the clay was more of a challenge to me, even if I knew that I could play well on clay, but not every time, limited time. And, you know, I had a lot of success as a junior, so I know how to play on the clay, but maybe the game that I developed, you know, playing very, very aggressive tennis was not suited for playing on clay. But I did play my own way on the clay, and you know, I nearly made it once, getting to the final, and made a few quarterfinals. But I did win it once, and that was as a junior in 1983. That was the success.
You didn't win just that. You did the Grand Slam in juniors that year.
Yeah, that's very true. But I remember that I watched one of the best finals, probably played Yannick Noah beating Mats Wilander just before I was going to play. It's probably one of the loudest places that I've ever been to in tennis. And I had to play my final actually on the center court right after that match. And I thought everybody would leave, but it was actually quite a few people.
You played a French guy. You played Franck Février.
Yeah, Février. Yes, I do remember that. Yes. So there was some good memories. That was back in 1983, and had a few good rounds, had a few bad rounds at the French Open, but had my big chances. Everybody keeps telling me and keeps reminding me about 1989 playing Chang in the final. That's one of the topics that a lot of people still talk about as of today.
Well, I mean,
and what can I say? I gave it my best. It wasn't enough. Probably a match that I should have won. You know, having the chances 2 sets to 1, having lots of break points.
30-40, 4-4, 30-40, right? That's
you
what
go.
It came down to, right?
Yeah, it was probably one ball away from making the difference there. And but never mind, I actually thought after losing that final, you feel terrible, but I felt okay anyway because I made the final. I thought I'd get another chance to win at the Roland Garros, but I really never had another chance to win after that. Made a few quarterfinals, but nothing apart from that. So that was my big day, but at least Michael Chang is very happy about this final because even he being a great player, that was the only Grand Slam that he actually did win.
Yeah, and you got 6 others, so
that's true.
You got a pair in each of the other Grand Slams, so you're definitely. And then you got your revenge on him. In fact, at Roland Garros, in your last appearance at the
French Open, right? Yeah, absolutely. That was actually a great match to be playing. Obviously, I wanted a revenge. I think it ended up to being a very, very tight match, and I played really, really well and probably won in 4 sets. So. Yeah, that was a mini revenge and a great match to have the replay again.
And in fact, I think that I don't know if you remember, but the next round you played Rosé.
Oh yes, I did. Yeah, I do remember that.
That was your last match there.
Yeah, I was
think
quite disappointed.
something
Quite disappointed losing that match, and I had to play on court on the Susan Langland, which is a different court to the center court. So,
oh, there you go. I had lost you said, but something special happened that day. I don't know if you remember. On the court when you walked off court, do you remember?
No, I don't actually.
You got a very, very big ovation from the crowd, and you got pretty emotional coming off court. I don't.
Yeah, there was a very emotional year that last year in 1996, where I actually said this is going to be my last year, which was in a way it was a nice thing to do, you know, to have a farewell of every tournament. But it was tough, you know, mentally as well. It's nothing that I really would recommend to anybody else because it's way too hard. So yeah, you should do it in a different way. But at the same time, I got a lot of support from the fans around the world when I was playing. So that did feel good. And yeah, obviously it is emotional when you know you're going to play your last year or you played your last event at Roland Garros, because I do have a lot of memories from there and played a lot of great matches and had a lot of support actually from the French fans, and even today, you know, walking around in Paris, you know, there's still a lot of people that do recognize me more in France than in a lot of other places.
Oh no, you were. I mean, when people talk about you, people talk about the class act you were on court and off court. I mean,
that's nice.
I mean, it's unanimous. There is never a debate on that. It's not like people are now this Stefan Edberg. There's no debate. I mean, you're the. In fact, they renamed the Fair Play Award the Stefan Edberg Award. I mean, that's pretty much says it all.
Yes, it does today. It's actually something that I feel very proud of as of today. Maybe I didn't think about it that much when they did decide it, just a few years after I sort of retired. Normally you name these sort of trophies when you're older or even sometimes when you pass away. So it's been great to have that name, and you know, it's something that I feel very proud about, as I said.
I mean, I have to say, you don't. First of all, you don't age. What's the deal? Like, what's the water that you drink? What's in the water?
Well, it's pretty plain water, but we all age in a different way, though.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm very jealous. You also had I mean, your story in Roland Garros also goes to the doubles, where there was also something a bit controversial there. You played a final in doubles, and you had a match point that you may have gotten robbed, maybe.
That's true. These things does happen in tennis, and yeah, I don't remember much about it. I know it was a very, very close match, and obviously there are also certain situations. Sometimes you think you go have the right call, and sometimes it may not be that way, or it could be the other way around. But yeah, that was my big chance winning the French Open in doubles with Anders Jarry there. So
against Swedes also, no?
No, I think we played against
Fitzgerald.
Yeah, Smith and Fitzgerald, maybe.
Yeah. And it was like 14-12 in the fifth.
Yeah, it was a very long match. Yeah, but there was a time when I was playing doubles, and you know, I had a lot of success with Anders, which is one of the greatest doubles players that play the game, and I think we won 2 slams. But the thing is, I actually stopped playing doubles basically in 1987 when I was 21, because you know, it was just too demanding on the singles game with all the scheduling. So you know, that's when I started to concentrate on singles. I would have loved to continue to play doubles because it's a sport, or that's something that I really enjoy playing. It's very suitable for my game, but you know, I just have to give it up basically.
What do you think of doubles today? Doubles today has changed completely, you know, with the doubles specialist. I mean, it's become a sport of its own almost.
Well, it has. Sometimes, the game changes over time, and obviously that's the way it will be if the top players doesn't play. If they don't play, you know, there's going to be different players playing doubles, and it's played a little different way today. But you know, it's fun watching doubles even today. You know, it's a lot of things happening, and it's a good game to watch if you do enjoy doubles.
Do you think that doubles should always exist? That it
Well, I think they should always keep doubles for as long as they can. What I would say would obviously be better if you had the top players playing doubles again, but that it's kind of tricky. And you know, they should keep it as long as they can. But I know sometimes it's hard to run singles and doubles and tournament because you have the financial bit as well and the interest and the television. So you can talk a lot about it. But I love to see double being around.
Oh, because there was just there's a little debate going on right now, and I don't know if you followed, but Marion Bartoli, did you see what she said publicly, that she thinks maybe there's too much money invested in doubles, and that in order to try and get money to more players who lose lower in the tournaments and draws or in qualies, they could spare some of that doubles money and give it to the other people. What do you think of that?
Well, I think as the situation is now, we're going to have to do a lot of rethinking in many ways in a lot of sports, because this is quite something that we have as of now, and we haven't had any tennis for months now, and hopefully we can get started again. But I think we have to rethink the sport and rethink different ideas, how to go forward. I don't know what the best solutions are, but there's a lot of smart people around tennis, and I'm sure they will find a great solution, because tennis is a great sport. Tennis is always going to be around, and you know, with the stars we have, you know, it's going to be successful going forward. But probably some changes is going to be made. I don't know how you should do those. You need to be involved in the game to understand every aspect of the game, and I'm sure they will come up with something.
Okay, so we hold on to the doubles, though. We agree.
Oh yes, I would love to see that. But
okay. Let's. We're keeping doubles, Marion. We're keeping doubles. Stefan said it. Stefan said it. You seem to be wise. In fact, you're like a wise, very sage person. Why don't you get involved in? Is that something you never thought of, like getting involved at you know, in decision making in tennis?
Of course, I've been asked to be involved in tennis in many different ways, from different committees through the ATP, Davis Cup captain, and a lot of things. You know, being a Davis Cup captain, been asked a few times, but obviously, in order to do the job, you need to have the passion, you need to have the time, and you need to do it properly. And if you can't do that, I don't see any reason to do it. And it's the same thing. In order to be involved in tennis, you need to have the passion, you need to have the will, the time, and I don't feel I have that as of now. And then there's no point being involved, because you need to be 100% in if you're going to go into something and make a difference. So sometimes it's better to be on the sidelines. You know, with all my experience, yes, you can probably have a lot of inputs, a lot of thinking, and some thoughts that I can always give.
And you do you have I mean, you have opinions, I'm sure, and
oh yes,
and your opinions would be, I mean nobody could be like, oh no, it doesn't matter what he says, come on. Everybody would be so happy to hear you and what you have to say and what you think. Why don't you step forward a little bit? I mean, I'm not asking you to invest yourself 100%, but come on, you're one of the masters of the games. You're a legend of the game.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. And I do know about it, and but like I said before, I'd rather be on the sideline if I don't really feel like it. And sometimes, it's good to be a little bit private and being a little bit away, being a little neutral. So that can be benefits to that as well. But you never know. You can always change your mind. But as of now, I'm very good as it is now. Life is good as it is, even during these times.
Okay, you seem at ease. You seem happy, which is the most important. Let's talk a little bit about Swedish tennis, because when you were playing, you guys, there was a bunch of guys, and you were dominating the game. There were a number of you in top 10. There were tournaments being played left and right, being won by Swedes. Swedish tennis right now is going through a little rough patch compared to that. How does that happen? How does it go? How does a country go from being so strong in the sport to almost, I'm not gonna say nothing, because that's not fair, but yeah, I mean, in comparison, the contrast is pretty violent.
Yeah, we do get that question quite a lot, and it's hard to give a sort of full answer. But if we go back in time, obviously, tennis became popular in the 60s by television. Then we had the icon Bjorn Borg that really started the second wave, where he got very popular. He was a superhero, and everybody wanted to play tennis. Started to build a lot of indoor facilities, a lot of outdoor courts. Everybody wanted to play tennis, and me, you know, together with a lot of other young people, we loved the game of tennis, but we had good sort of coaches, you know, who did a really good job. Combination with a lot of young people at the same age wanted to work together and wanted to make a difference. So we sort of came up. It's hard to tell why. We probably worked harder than a lot of other nations. Maybe we came up with new ideas. We worked a little bit as a team, and then after that, as you know, Mats Wilander winning the French Open at 17 years of age, that made me realize at 15 at the time, if he can win the French Open, I'm not that far behind. And everybody else around Mats felt, if he can, we can. And we worked together, and suddenly we had 10, 15 players in top 100. It's very unique. And I think even at the time we had 5 players in the top 10, and we got the question, how do you do it? I didn't know at the time. I had no idea. We just did it. And I said I probably made a quote back in the mid 80s that what we have now is probably not going to happen in the next 100 years, and I still stand with that. And obviously over time, I think a lot of other nations has sort of kept up the pace with Sweden, probably developed and sort of have more financially support, I think. But I think in the last really star we had was Robin Söderling, which sort of came in the next generation. We had Thomas Johan, Chris Enquist, but after Robin Söderling, which sort of disappeared 5, 6, 7 years ago, it's been a little bit empty. But we do have some good young players. We had a brother Ymer, which is doing fairly well now, and you know, Michael just broke into top 100, so at least that's a start. But sometimes it takes time. It's very hard to break into the top 100 in tennis because you need a lot of support from especially from the federation, from sponsors, and we don't have much of that in Sweden. So that's actually a problem, and for most of the players financially they can't do it. It makes it very hard.
Do you guys, the old generation, quote on the old generation, you guys are old or whatever, do you guys ever get together and you know, sit down, have a few drinks and be like, okay, how can we fix this? What can be done?
Well, I think a lot of the former players are involved in clubs, and you have Magnus Norman at Good to Great Tennis Academy. There's a few academies. There's a lot of people who were there in the past trying to help out, and you know, but it's not that easy. We're up very north, and the quality maybe not as good as it was 20 years ago. We need to travel a lot. We need to get abroad, maybe start at the earlier age, and it takes time to break through. So financially you need a lot of support. Most of the players don't have the financial support, so that's a tough go to start with. And yeah, we do see each other because we have still 2 tournaments here in Sweden. We have Båstad, which is played in the summer, and Stockholm Open in fall. So usually a lot of us from the older generation, we see each other there, and it's good to catch up to see what we're all doing, and that's a good time of the year.
Who was your, when you were on tour, who was your wingman? Who were you really, really tight with Jared?
Yeah, I would say so. He was one of them, just a few of them. There was a lot of Swedes around, and obviously we hang out. But after time, once you want to get to the top of the game, you stay together with Tony, my coach, and my wife Annette was there. So we sort of was the mini team, and then we saw people, obviously mostly Swedish people, but it could be anybody there. So it was probably nobody that was very close to, but we were all friends and we all practiced together. There's always friendship around, and that was the great thing from the time in the 80s and the 90s. We all got together, we trained together, we had a good time. So it was easy to be on the tour in that respect.
Were there some that were more rowdy than others, that were a little bit more, I don't know, breaking the rules, climbing the fence here and there. Come on, give us a
oh
little
yes,
bit of.
absolutely. I always have a few players within the Swedes that would do sort of things which is not quite normal. But you know, you have somebody like Michael Pernfors, which was a great fun guy to have around, and you know, Jan Gunnarsson. So sometimes made some tricks, but more in a fun way. So yeah, there were different personalities around, definitely.
Michael Pernfors,
I was one of the more quiet guys.
Well, of course, you're like top of the class. You're like sitting front row, studying.
Yeah.
Michael Pernfors had a great story with the French, right? Because that year when he had his run to the final, I think he lost his bag, or his bag got stolen or something, and that came from the large shorts.
Sure. And I actually played Michael that year in the second round. I think I was up a set and maybe even 5-2 or something, and started to blow up a storm. I think it was a thunderstorm, and momentum changed. We had a break, and maybe a little bit of luck for him at the time, but he turned that match around, and he beat me, and then I think he beat Boris Becker on the way. Even Lundell in the final was a little bit too tough, but he sort of came out of nowhere for that time, and then he had a couple of great years after that.
You guys knew him. Did you ever think that he had what it takes to go to a Grand Slam final?
Well, I think because he did a lot of university in the States, you know, he was very successful there. But to predict anybody get into the Grand Slam final, it's always hard to imagine anybody. Yeah, maybe you can say one or two players. Yeah, they definitely have it. Like if you see Pete Sampras or him play first time, yes, there was something special. Yes, you would think he'll make the final, but it's very seldom that you see young players or new kids on the block and you think this guy is going to get to the final of a Grand Slam. So no, I think we all were very surprised at the time. Maybe he was us too, but he was a little bit of an underdog, and but a great player. And we, you know, he's a great Davis Cup player. We had a great Davis Cup final back in Melbourne, I think in 1986. We nearly won that one, but we nearly beat Pat Cash in a 5-setter there, but didn't quite make it. But great person.
He definitely was a fun guy and very entertaining, and he was very fresh because as you said, just he came out of nowhere, at least for the French fans.
Yes, he did.
So the tournament is taking place in September. I want to know, we are about 4 months away.
Yeah.
I want you to tell us live here who's going to win the tournament.
Who's going to win the tournament? Yeah, that's a trend. Well, I think there's only been one guy over the last decade, and it's Rafa Nadal. He's going to be one of them, I think. Or Novak Djokovic. Those are the two that you normally would pick. But now we've had a long break here. Maybe it's time for one of the young guys. I think
I think you're going to say Dominic Thiem. Sorry, we got a little disconnect.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I think I'm just going to have to plug in here because I think the battery is running a little bit low here.
Go for it. Plug in.
Yep. There we are.
There we go. So you were saying Dominic Thiem?
Yes, I think so. I mean, he could have won. You know, done now when they played in Australia, it was very close, and I'm sure he's going to win it one day. He's good enough, and you know, he could be an outsider definitely to win it, and there might be a surprise somewhere else. We all know that Alexander Zverev came around a few years ago. Maybe that's been a little bit disappointing. He's got potential. Tsitsipas is a great player, which we've all seen. Or there might be somebody else, but those are the names that I would pick. Obviously, Roger, I think, winning on the clay, that would be tough. He's always going to be a threat at Wimbledon or US Open, but possibly not at the French Open. But you never know.
Even you don't believe in Roger, man. I mean,
well, winning the French Open this year, it's going to be hard. But, you know, he's proven me wrong before. So
yes. He, in fact, beat a Swede when he won.
Sure did.
We have a question here from Sasha, who's asking, could Monfils, with his form before the tour stopped, could he win it?
Well, I love watching Monfils. He's a great player, great athlete, and you know, he's got a potential to beat anybody really on a good day. it's going to be hard. If you can put it together for 7 matches, that's what you need to. Yes, of course you could, but it's a tough task, I would say so. But you can never count him out. The problem is to keep it all the way for 2 weeks, and that's a tough thing during the Grand Slam, to stay focused and go through first week, and then, you know, obviously you need to save the energy and the best for the very last. But then you're going to play against the best players, so it's always a tough way, especially the last 2 matches. That's where it really comes into something different, I would say, in a Grand Slam. A lot of people can, you know, get to round of 16, even quarterfinals, but get to the semifinals, final, that's a harder task.
He's been there. He's been to the semis.
He's been there, so, you know, he knows it. But it's you know, still to win the semifinal and the final, yeah, it would be something. There was a long time since the French won Yannick Noah back in '83. Yeah.
You think?
Maybe with a crowd behind, he's got a chance.
They're waiting for the next French guy like a Messiah. Do you think he has, amongst the French that are, you know, can potentially win the tournament, do you think he has the most chances, or is there somebody else that can do better?
I really don't have the answer there. I mean, Monfils has showed good form, you know, lately, so maybe that's the one I would think about. Yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. So last week, not last week, 2 days ago, in your place was somebody that you're familiar with. First name Martina, last name Navratilova. And we asked her about you, what she thought about you, and she basically just said exactly what everybody says. It's getting boring. Like,
okay.
Great guy, amazing tennis, classy. So we asked her for a question for you. So her question was, Martina Navratilovan's question for Stefan Edberg,
okay,
was the following: why did you stick with your offensive style, coming from such as a backcourt tennis school and you know, format? And were people asking you to sort of you know, change your style and stop rushing the net?
It's a very relevant question. It's quite unique. Sometimes you need to go your own way, but I truly believe you need to find a game that you love to play. I always had a good serve, always were very fast going forward, and I just hated to get into long rallies. Even when I was young, I wanted to hit the ball hard, and I just wanted to finish the point quickly. And that's when I sort of came up to the idea, hitting my kick serve, getting into the net, especially on the clay, when I was pretty young, and that sort of proved to be successful. And I was always very supported to play my own way. And I had a coach at a young age, and we practiced a lot on serve and volley, which is probably very unusual at the time. He was a serve and volley player himself. So that's probably where it all started, because you really need to find your own personality, you know, your own technique and the way you should play, because you can't just copy and play like everybody else, because it may not be suited for yourself. So I think that's part of the reason I did go my own way and found a game that I did well.
Yeah, well, yeah, relatively well, I'd say.
Relatively well.
You, in fact, I think you switched to a one-handed backhand. No, you had a two-handed backhand to start with.
Yeah, that's very true. I had a two-handed backhand up to sort of 14, 15. I was growing quite a bit at the time. I had trouble, you know, hitting my backhand, and I had Percy Rosberg at the time, which I went up to Stockholm to practice with. He used to coach Bjorn Borg as well. Technically, he is probably one of the best coaches in the world, and we tried. You know, we tested out, you know, hitting with a one-handed backhand. It worked out very well, and then I took the decision it'd probably be better for my serve and volley game as well. But obviously, you know, once you switch from a two-handed backhand to a one-handed backhand, especially on the clay, you're going to be in trouble, because everybody's going to hit to your backhand all the time, and that was tough. And how do you avoid that? Everybody hitting to your backhand. Well, I think then I came up with the idea you can serve and volley. They're not going to get to my backhand, so they'll never get the ball to my backhand. So there was one of the solutions to avoid, hitting to my backhand and losing the point. So I think that's how I developed even more serve and volley at the time, because it was a struggle the first year and a half until I got strong enough and confident enough. Because I used to have a much better forehand when I was younger, which is hard to believe, but I used to crunch my forehand as a young, but something happened on the way where actually my forehand were sort of the weak part, and my backhand developed to be one part of the strong game of my game.
Mm-hmm. And it's super late to change backhands when you're going to be a pro, and you're
absolutely don't do it at that age. It's nothing to be recommended. Definitely not. It's too hard, I think.
I have a question here from Gilly from New York, who's saying that she was a big fan of yours. She's in fact in love with Mats Wilander, as were a lot of girls in the days. But
of course,
she's asking, what advice would you have for your 18-year-old self?
For somebody who's 18 years of age?
No, for you at 18. If you could give yourself advice at 18-year-old today, knowing the career you had and knowing what would you change?
Well, when you look back at your career, when you're sort of 18, you always look forward. You don't look in the back mirror. You just go for it, and you sort of, everything is quite easy in that way. But obviously, what does make a difference at that age is somebody to point you in the right direction. You actually need advice of people around you at 18, because you're not going to have all the knowledge yourself. So I think you need to have people around. That's the advice you have. You need to have the right people around that, because you can't do it on your own. So it's very important, but you need to have the passion within yourself to become a better player, and work hard at it, and be curious, and find different ways, and try to train smart. I think that's the advice I would give at young players. It's not the amount of hours that you spend on the court. You need to be disciplined. Sometimes it's better to work out 2.5 hours in a day than 4. It's not the amount, it's the quality, and actually training on your right things. And another thing I would also say, so sometimes it's much better to work on your strength, and because a lot of people, they work on their weak points, but you can do that, but it's better to develop strong shots, have a great serve, a great forehand, so work with your strength as well.
Interesting, very interesting. So I was looking up stuff. I was revising my Stefan Edberg before this interview, and when you go over your career and you read all the stuff about you, there's a name that just keeps popping up all the time. And there comes a point where I was like, am I looking at the right profile? Am I in the right person? You know who I'm talking about, right?
Maybe Boris Becker.
Maybe Boris Becker. Unbelievable. Like, you guys were inseparable.
Yeah, I think at the time, we sort of we grew up at the same time. We actually played quite a few times as juniors. I think the first time we actually met, we were playing team championship in Europe, and Germany came to Sweden to play in my hometown in Västervik. That's where I saw Boris the first time. It's hard to imagine. He was 15, I was 16. And that was the year that Bjorn Borg played his famous final against John McEnroe, which we all watched at the time. So that's where it all started. We actually played also in the first round of Wimbledon in juniors 1983. And then he sort of finally beat me at some junior masters back in maybe 85 or something. Quite disappointed at the time to lose to somebody who was younger. But then later that summer he won Wimbledon at 85, and that was probably a shock for everybody, and maybe even for himself. But it was also a great moment in tennis. A young star that comes forward and wins Wimbledon from Germany. That was good. It was also a trigger for me. I hadn't won a Grand Slam at the time. So I felt, if you can do it, so maybe I can do it. And later on that year in 1984, I won the Australian Open, my first Grand Slam. And then we sort of follow each other throughout the career. And he's been number one, I've been number one. We played a lot of times in a lot of finals. We've only played 4 times in Grand Slams, though, which is quite astonishing over a career.
You had a memorable semi-final at Roland Garros.
Oh yes, we did. In 5 sets, back in '89, and then we played 3 Wimbledon finals, 88, 89, 90. We should have played maybe 91 too, because I probably played some of my best grass court tennis in 91, but I lost to Michael Stitch in the semifinal in this famous match where I never lost serve, but I still lost the match. And he ended up beating Boris in the final. So there could have been a fourth year there. So obviously those are the times where a lot of people think about the era when we sort of were dominating the grass for a short period of time. But there was a lot of other great players around, which I had the luxury of playing against, watching as young, Lendl, McEnroe, Connors. And then after that came Pete Sampras, Agassi. So been in a good era where you played some of the old guys at the time that you watched on television, and then you played some of the newcomers that turned out to be great players, Pete and Andrea, of course.
What did he mean to you, Boris Becker? What is he, when you think back, what comes to mind? What strikes you as in the guy?
Well, obviously an excellent tennis player, and I think, like I said before, he was huge for tennis, booming Europe at the time, and then together with Steffi Graf, I mean, everything was booming in Germany, and he created a lot of interest as a personality. Boom Boom Becker, you know, the way he played and the way he was on the court. So that's when I think about Boris, and as a great ambassador in tennis. And obviously we've had the luxury of playing a lot together, and you know, you sort of over time, when you think back, you know, it was a great time of our careers, and I think we were both important for each other because we were pushing each other to become better tennis players. So, and that's how I think about Boris.
How was the relationship?
I think it was always good, but obviously once you sort of get into the top of the game, you know, you're more like opponents. You stay friendly, not over friendly. You know, he does his things, I do my own things, and so. But then over time, you know, after we both stopped, now it's good to talk. You know, but at the time there was always a little bit of friction, which is always is. But it was a good one.
But I mean, you guys even took it to another level because you were sitting in Roger Federer's box and he was sitting in Novak Djokovic's box.
Yeah, that was quite incredible. Who would have thought that would have happened? That was a very, very unique moment, and I remember that you know, sitting opposite his box there, and Roger and Novak on the court. That was quite something. I never thought that would happen. Probably he would never thought that would have happened.
Did you guys? Were you able to exchange on that and have a little laugh about that, or?
Yeah, I mean he, you know, he was on Novak's deal, was on Roger's, so full respect. I know what he's capable of, his knowledge. So, like I said, it was always hard to see Roger losing, but at the same time, you know, the better player wins, and sometimes that's the way it is. You just have to accept it.
Sure. Okay, so your paths are continuing to intertwine because he's going to be in your place tomorrow. So
he is, okay.
Yeah, and I swear to God, this is not planned. It's just, that's just how it happened. So like Excellent. We asked Martina for a question for you. Could you give me a question for him? And if you want to make it an embarrassing one, that's fine. I have nothing against that, although I don't think that's going to come from you. But what would you ask him? And I'll, if you're okay, I'll be the messenger for that.
Okay. Well, maybe what's first come to mind is probably, you know, he's, you know, after winning Wimbledon in 1985, just his thoughts and you know, all the changes coming back to Germany, and being from, you know, just a junior on his way up, and then suddenly winning Wimbledon. There must have been quite a big difference from one way to another. So just the thoughts, how he felt, and you know what his thoughts was at the time, and if he was shocked himself to win Wimbledon.
Okay, I will relay the question. I'll ask him not to shoot the messenger. That's the most important part.
Okay.
Okay, now we've come to the most important part for me of this interview is the quiz.
Oh, I see. Okay.
3-question quiz, and I am very. This is important for me. I don't like to lose quizzes. I don't like the people who I quiz to get the answers, so I make them tough. Okay. This is when it gets competitive. So 3 questions. You ready?
Yes, as ready as I can be.
Okay. First one is about your runner-up trophy and runner-up situation at Roland Garros. And my question is, do you remember how you began your speech as a runner-up?
Not a clue.
Do you remember the situation? Do you remember the way it happened?
No, I don't remember anything, to be honest. That's my weak part of remembering things. I don't, but I'm sure. What could I have said?
You remember walking up the stairs?
Yes, you have to do that, so everybody does that.
At least you remember that, yeah. Who spoke first?
Excuse me?
Who spoke first? Do you remember who spoke first?
I probably would have spoken first, I would imagine, being the runner-up, but that's not the case. Okay.
That's not the case. And so that should give you a hint, because do you remember what Michael did when he spoke? There was something special. He did something a bit original when he spoke.
What could he have done? Praying to upstairs, maybe?
Well, he did that, of course.
Yes.
But, no, he pulled out a little paper. He had notes.
Oh, he did? Okay. Well, I have to watch a replay of this because I don't remember that.
And your first sentence was, "Well, I don't have notes, but I'm going to try and do this anyways."
Okay.
And he offered you his notes. It was a nice moment. It was a nice moment. You put a bit of you made the moment a bit lighter and a bit of humor, and you got a nice ovation from the crowd for that.
Okay, good.
Okay, good. So I'm leading 1-0.
Oh, definitely, yeah, by far.
Second question. We're going to talk about the 1989 campaign. We're going to continue. Sorry. Okay. But I want to know in how much detail you can talk about that campaign in terms of your road to the final.
The road to the final, I know Boris Becker in the semi-final, that I know. Maybe Mancini in the quarter-final.
Correct.
Possibly.
Correct.
But then it gets really tricky.
I'll give you a hint. In the round of 16, you beat a Grand Slam champion.
Oh, I did?
Somebody who got a Grand Slam and he had a wild card.
Ivanisevic?
Very good. Very good. You found that on your own. I didn't help you at all.
No, not at all. No.
Then third round was an American. Little guy.
Little guy doesn't tell me much. No.
Jimmy Arias.
Oh, Jimmy Arias. Okay, yeah. I played him played him before. Yeah, of course.
Second round, Nicolas Pereira.
Mm-hmm.
And first round, do you remember?
No, I don't.
A very famous coach.
Very famous coach. What could it be? Larry Stefanski? No.
Like he coaches one of the best players of all times.
Okay, Vaida maybe?
No. Correct.
There we go.
Vaida, Pereira, Arias, Ivanisevic, Mancini, Becker, and Michael Chen.
There we go.
It's a solid path. I mean, you had a pretty tough draw starting Ivanisevic.
Yeah, that's very true. But that sometimes it goes.
Okay. Final question.
It's 2-0 for you.
It is 2-0 for me.
Absolutely. But to get 7 out of 7, that's a hard one.
Listen, you're the one who played the final. I didn't.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. If you get this question right, we'll call it a draw. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you what your record was versus Swedish players at Roland Garros.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You wanted me to tell you how many times you played?
You probably can tell me that. Yeah, I know I lost to Henrik Holm 1 year. I shouldn't have done that. That was a bad one. That was a good one for him.
Tough score too. Very tough score.
Yeah, it was a long 5-setter. I do remember that.
5-7, 6-7, 7-6, 7-6, 4-6.
There you go.
So that's 1.
Yes.
So there were 4 more.
4 more. Anders Järryd, I know I beat once, maybe in the quarterfinal.
You beat him
maybe
once?
even twice.
You split. You split with him.
Split. I lost second round 1 year. Yeah, that's
exactly. It was your first.
Hörnfors I lost to, obviously.
Yeah.
We talked about that before, so I should remember that one.
So that's 2 and 2. No, that's 1 and 3.
Yeah.
And there's one more guy hanging around there that you beat.
Oh, I see. Who could that be? Jonas Svensson, maybe?
Nope.
No.
I'm not going to tell you. I've been helping you too much.
Nyström, no, never beat him. Tiedemann, no.
I'll help you with the year and the round. It was in 1988, and it was in the 3rd round.
Oh, it was? Okay, doesn't tell me much. Memory from matches, not my best part.
It's interesting. There are really players that remember everything, and you.
Oh yes.
You blank it out.
Yes, I do, because I always think forward most of the time.
Going to the net.
You can learn from history, but you can't change history. But sometimes it's good to remember history as well.
Well, history helps you not make the same mistakes in the future.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Okay, Gunnarsson.
Oh, Gunnarsson, yes. When you say it, I remember that one. Even, that was one of the backcourt, yeah.
So 2 and 3 against Swedes at Roland Garros.
Yeah, very sad, but...
yeah, the home one. The home one hurts, because that one...
That was a tough one.
Yeah.
At the time, but, that's the way it goes.
Well, okay.
Yeah, 3-0 to you. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm on a 2-0 winning streak. I also beat Martinez, so I'm very proud. Okay. I'm going to try and go through this whole 2 weeks without losing. I'm going to go for the perfect game.
If you put the right question, I'm sure you will.
Hey, I'm the one who makes the question. That's the only power I have.
That's the advantage you have. You should keep it that way.
Before I let you go, I want to ask you, you know that we are running an auction for the Paris hospitals.
Excellent.
To help them out. And so I think that you're willing to donate something for that.
Absolutely.
What is it? Tell us about it.
Well, it's tennis racket. Actually, 2 tennis rackets, because it could be some other auction at some time there. First, I thought about this small racket. I love tennis, but I haven't played with it, so that goes away.
Okay.
The first racket is one of the rackets. I didn't play on tour with it, but I probably played on the Veterans Tour. It's an old sort of pro stuff.
Okay.
So I'm gonna sign it here on the grip here.
Okay, great.
Just hang on here.
Happening live, people. There's no special effects here. This is what you see is what you get.
There it is.
Nice.
I probably will sign it on some other part of the racket, but I'll do that afterwards. And the second racket is obviously the racket Roger Federer played with during his time. But I was coach at the time, so I wore this on the court when I was coaching Roger.
Wow.
And I switched the racket at the same time as he did, so that's one of my rackets here. So I'm going to sign this one as well.
Wow, that's amazing. Beautiful.
So there it is, signed here. Yeah, it's hard to tell, but it'll be fine. So I'll be sending off 2 rackets, because I'm sure you can find some other charities as well. Because these rackets have been lying around in my wardrobe for too long, so it's better they go somewhere.
They're being put to good use. They're being put to good use. They will be. It's fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Edberg. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure talking to you as well.
Thank you very much, and I hope that you will reconsider and come out of the woods and come and join the party, but on a more serious note, bring your influence to this game, because as you said, it's time to rethink the game. The game is evolving, and this could be the perfect time for you.
Possibly. I will give it some thought. And tomorrow you have a new opponent, Boris Becker. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you.